Hello and welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax, the fertility podcast here to guide you through the roller coaster of trying to conceive. I'm Hannah, your host, a fertility acupuncturist with clinics in London and across the UK. Our patients tell us how frustrated they feel about their lack of fertility education. So this podcast aims to provide all that education they never taught you in school, with the aim of putting you back in control of your fertility journey. We also have our fertility community to help address isolation and provide further information and support. To join us, the link is in the show notes. This podcast has been sponsored by FemHealth, a new online department store for fertility and conception. FemHealth help women embrace their fertility journey by providing access to products, treatment and resources. Fem is also home to Temp Drop, a new all-in-one device that you sleep in, giving you insights and valuable information on your cycle and fertility. Visit FemHealth at www.femhealth.co.uk with over 250 products and 60 brands to support your journey. Use the code RELAX15 for 15% exclusive discount. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Don't Tell Me to Relax. I am joined by friend of the show, which is what they always say on other podcasts, so I'm saying it on this one. So we're joined by friend of the show, Kirsty Harrison, who is our team nutritionist in her own right, an all-round jolly, lovely person. So, Kirsty, do you want to do a little introduction and say who you are, where you are, and what you're doing?
I am a nutritional therapist, as you have just pointed out. I specialise in women's health and fertility. I live in Cornwall and I see clients here in my little office and online.
And today we are going to be talking all about breakfasts and why, when you go on Instagram, everybody who's a nutritionist talks about the importance of breakfast for fertility, or anyone actually who works in the fertility space. And we're doing this really as a kind of a taster, a little kind of teaser, because Kirsty is going to be doing a full session on nutrition to support your fertility as part of our Teaching to Conceive series. So we thought we'd take one particular topic and discuss it. And if you found this interesting and you want to find out more, then all the details about Kirsty's session are going to be at the end of the show. So, Kirsty, breakfast. Tell us why everybody says it is the most important meal of the day. Tell us about that. Is that just a myth or is it actually true?
No, I think it's true. I think it is the most important meal of the day. I think we should be eating breakfast, particularly women of a reproductive age. I think we're very sensitive to blood sugar disruptions and issues. And I think that making sure that you have your breakfast is a way of stabilising those blood sugar levels in the morning. So you need to stabilise your blood sugar levels, and that helps with your general insulin sensitivity. It also helps with your cortisol regulation, because your cortisol peaks in the morning, and having a nutritious breakfast can help bring that back down again. And more, I think I'm seeing people who are just generally under eating. And I think by not eating breakfast, you're contributing to the, not getting enough calories in throughout the course of the day.
Okay. All sounds like a very good reason to be eating our breakfast, Kirsty.
It really does, doesn't it?
So, but tell me, because the thing is that always blows my mind is like when we think about breakfast, and I don't know about you, but I was brought up on a breakfast of Frosties with a spoonful of white sugar on.
Crunchy nut cornflakes, which are
crunchy nut cornflakes.
Cereal.
Yeah, whatever's, or Weetabix with like literally a tablespoon of sugar.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing, lots of people, I mean, I presume that even now still, cereal as a choice of breakfast is still, I mean, I don't know, do you think it's the most go-to thing that people would have for breakfast still?
I see a lot of my clients when they come, well, I say that. I'm going to go, can I make a sweeping generalisation?
On this podcast, you absolutely can, yeah.
A lot of my male clients love cereal for breakfast. And some women do, but not quite as many. Some of them, particularly when they get to working with us, because they've done quite a lot of research as well. But I think from being young, I remember we're very heavily marketed by big cereal companies like Kellogg's, like you were saying, and I can't think of anything now. Can't think of any other cereal
Nestle,
brands.
Nestle, I bet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
do they
yeah.
do cereal? Yeah, but it's very heavily marketed to, and they're aimed at us as young people. And I think if we're not educated about how damaging cereal can be for breakfast, then I think it's just people just don't know.
Yeah.
But they are not a great way to start your day. I'm not saying you should never have cereal. If you fancy a bowl of cereal at some point, that's, okay, but I wouldn't recommend it for breakfast.
And so tell us why. What's wrong with a bowl of cereal for your breakfast?
They don't offer a huge amount of nutrition, to be perfectly honest. They might have a bit of fibre, perhaps. They might be fortified with, I don't know, folic acid or calcium or something along those lines, maybe, but they're not offering you any protein. They tend to be very high in sugar, which is a terrible way to start your day. And yeah, they're not going to keep you full for any length of time. And then you're already starting the day with a sort of very imbalanced blood sugar regulation, which can have such a wider knock-on effect with your hormone health. So once in a while, but they have to be the exception to the rule, I think.
Yeah. And it's really interesting though, isn't it? Like how popular they are, and like how, there's a whole aisle dedicated to cereal in each supermarket.
And
so
all given some of them, they're really clever now, I think, with the way that they're labelled. Like some of them are high protein, some of them are low sugar, some of them are, but they're, essentially they're all just the same.
It's interesting as well, because from a Chinese medicine point of view, like we always talk about looking after your stomach and your spleen in Chinese medicine. And we always talk about this idea that you don't want to put anything too cold in there because it can really like dysregulate it. And I'm talking Chinese medicine speak here. But, having like cold milk on cereal on an empty stomach from a Chinese medicine point of view is like not the best way of starting your day either. So it's interesting that there is a correlation there.
Yeah. But I think the money behind cereal and the money behind driving it is probably what is a huge part of the problem, because and also they are brightly coloured and exciting to look at, and there's lots of things that make them feel appealing.
The ones that are like, are they called Crave? That are
I don't know.
They're like they look like a mini cookie.
Yeah.
And I just think, why would
why?
What?
Yeah.
How can they be allowed to make that?
I know.
As a cereal and target it at like young people.
Young people. Kit Kat have their own cereal as well. They have like little tiny Kit Kat shop. I've never looked at what's in them, but I just looked at the box and thought that is awful. But as a teenager, I lived off of Crunchy Nut cornflakes, and I had the worst skin. I had the worst periods. I'm not saying that's just the reason, but it was probably a pretty big contribution to why I felt and looked so crap most of the time.
Yeah. Mine, as I said, mine was Frosties. I was all about the tiger.
You're all about Tony the Tiger.
So if we're not eating cereal, then what should we be eating? What should a good breakfast look like?
So essentially, I think we really, and we're bang on about it all the time, so it's really, really boring, but it is really important, is you need to be focusing everything around protein. You really want that 30 grams of protein in the morning. The protein is what's going to keep you feeling full. It's going to keep your blood sugar levels really nice and stable. And actually eating a proper breakfast in the morning will then hopefully stop you from overeating later in the day as well. So it's going to give you that feeling of satiety and fullness as well, which I think is really good. So your protein can be whatever you want it to be. I think at this time of year, and this is something that I'm trying to lean into a bit more as well, it's like really focusing on just making sure it's really savoury. So even if it's leftovers from the night before, or thinking like it doesn't have to be a traditional breakfast meal. It can be leftovers from the night before. It can be, I don't know, meat and veg if that's what you want, or fish or something along those lines as well. And really packing in making sure that you get good levels of fibre as well, and using it as an excuse to add in loads of additional antioxidants and a leafy green veg and all that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, the protein is the key component, really. 25 to 30 grams of protein, I think, with your breakfast is a really good way to start the day.
And when you say, I'm
go on,
interrupted you. You know what I'm going to ask?
Go on.
25 to 30 grams of protein. What is that? Like, what does that look like?
Well, there's about 6. If you think about eggs, there's about 6 grams of protein in an egg. So even if you have 3 eggs, you still need to be looking at a bit more protein in as well. So you're probably looking at a piece. I sort of, with my clients, I tend to go, you need a bit of protein that's the size of the palm of your hand. So like a chicken breast or a side, salmon breast, tofu. Tofu, I'm not quite so good on the quantities with how much you'd need. But yeah, you need a decent amount of protein. And if you were going to have a protein shake, for example, you would need to have a fairly, make sure you're having a good 30-gram serving.
And so what about like nuts? So like a handful of nuts, would that be the same?
No, well, I think you'd need to be eating quite a lot of nuts, and remember that nuts are great, but they are also quite calorific, I think that's something also to remember as well if that's a concern for you. But yeah, nuts are brilliant, and I would have nuts with breakfast, but also combinations of things as well. So if you can have chia seeds provide protein, nuts provide protein, nut butter provides protein in quite small amounts. So you do, it's more about getting that you could get protein from different sources in your breakfast, because that would also provide diversity.
I guess the thing is as well, just going back, I'm just thinking about cereals, is that I think in the morning we feel like we're in a rush and we need to grab something like quick on the go. And I guess cereal kind of fills that role, doesn't it? Because it's like, it doesn't take long to prepare. It's there, it's ready, it's easy. And what you're saying sounds like a full-time job.
Well, yeah, it's essentially it. But we do have to, there is an element of the fact that we do have to try and find the time to look after ourselves a little bit, especially if, say, fertility and hormonal health is an issue for you. So we are very busy, but it doesn't take very long to boil a load of eggs and be able to take them with you on the go. If in times of being really in a rush, I just make a smoothie and take it with me. I mean, and I pack it full of berries and spinach and chia seeds and things that are going to provide other benefits as well. I wouldn't rely on a smoothie every day. Could certainly, have one every now and again when you are late. And you put a bit of food prep. When you're cooking at the weekends, could you make some egg muffins or get some smoked salmon? Or there's ways to do it, but I think you do have to prioritize yourself a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess it's like a bit of a mindset shift, isn't it? Because I guess we're so ingrained in this idea that breakfast is like something sweet and usually cold, or porridge if it's hot. But like breakfast is kind of more sweet, isn't it? That's kind of like the association. And I remember once doing a course where the lady said, you think of breakfast as like any other meal, like it's your dinner. Like it doesn't need to be this special breakfast like thing. It can just be exactly like you said, like your leftovers from the night before, because that has been I guess maybe it's because we've all been marketed this idea of what breakfast should look like, as opposed to what is best for us.
Yeah, I think so. And also, but we quite often, when we're having breakfast, the more traditionally, like you were saying, like the cereal, or we're just having toast or whatever, we're missing out on the opportunity to get loads more goodness into us as well. Like there's a whole meal there that's got no veg, no fruit, no sort of any other sort of kind of nutrition. It's just therefore it makes us harder to get in our 30 fruit and veg a day. That would be a lot.
That would be huge. Even for a nutritionist, that's quite a lot.
30 fruits and veg, 30 different plant varieties, should I say, in a week is very, very hard when you're not having anything at breakfast.
Yeah, if you're having a bowl of Cheerios for breakfast,
and you're
missing
going to
out.
really struggle. And it's a really good way of like starting the day right. And also trying to like protein and a bit of good fat for breakfast is it really will keep you feeling full, whereas a bowl of cereal won't. And you really don't want your blood sugar levels starting off on a rocky start, because every now and again having skipping breakfast, or every now and again having a really carby breakfast or a cereal based breakfast is fine, but long term you will end up causing yourself to have hormonal issues, because we really rely on stable blood sugar levels for good hormone health.
Yeah. And in terms of like, what about porridge? Like, because, porridge kind of like came back in fashion a few years ago, didn't it? And everyone was like talking on about porridge and all its benefits. If I have a bowl of porridge, I literally want to go back to sleep after I've eaten the porridge. it sucks the living life out of me.
See, I quite like a bog porridge, but I would always load it with stuff. So quite often you could mix like a whey protein powder into it to give you a bit of additional, to give it protein. And or I'd put Greek yogurt into it, I'd put loads of nuts and seeds and chia seeds and that sort of stuff on top of it as well. It won't be as good for your blood sugar levels as, say, having a completely savoury breakfast, but it's not too bad, and it's quite warming at this time of year when you do want some. But you really need to not have oats on their own,
Yeah,
because that's just a
yeah.
huge spike on your blood sugar levels. So making sure that they're like pimped up with loads and loads of good, and also use that as an excuse to get antioxidant. Have berries with it as well, sort of more low sugar type fruit that won't spike your blood sugars as much.
Yeah, not porridge, banana and honey.
We used to have butter when we were kids on porridge, butter and sugar. And it's bloody delicious, but yeah, can't be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think about protein powders then? Adding protein powders to, like, say, for example, your porridge or your Greek yogurt or something like that. Is that a good thing?
I think every now and again it's good. I don't have a problem with protein powders. I think they need to be very, very clean and not full of crap. And I think you need to be careful that they're not, particularly when you're on a whole array of supplements already. I think you need to be mindful not to get one that's also got loads of vitamins and minerals in them as well. So just get a very clean, plain protein one that's not got lots of sweeteners in, and use those. And I don't think it's a problem. I think it is hard to get in a good amount of protein every day, and so occasionally relying on a protein shake, I think, is not a bad idea.
So every time I see Tim Spector, from Zoe, eating his breakfast, because he likes to share what he's eating.
Yes.
For breakfast, he always has Greek yogurt, berries, and some seeds.
Yeah.
And I think, is that all right? What do we think about Tim and his breakfast?
Well, that goes against what you were saying about needing to have a warm breakfast.
Well, yes, exactly.
It?
I shall write in and tell him.
Yeah, write in and tell him. You do need to have a fair amount of Greek yogurt to hit your protein. But actually, I don't think Greek yogurt's a bad start to the day, really. But again, you do need it it needs to be good quality, plain Greek yogurt. Not any sort of flavoured yogurt, any sort of Greek style, just proper Greek yogurt. And then that for breakfast with nuts and seeds and fruit is probably chia seeds as well, because you do need to up the protein. Like, I think there's 9 grams of protein in 100. No, 9 grams of protein in 100 grams of yogurt. So you need, don't quote me on that, I can't actually remember now, but you need a fair amount of yogurt.
Yeah.
An uneatable amount, but a fair amount of yogurt to get that.
So, Muller fruit corners?
No.
Okay,
No.
just check it.
Go with,
just asking for a friend.
What, those ones with the little chocolate biscuits?
Yeah.
As well.
Is that a no for breakfast?
I'd go with the no.
Okay. And what about when I go and buy my Greek yogurt?
Yeah.
I'm always confused about, do I go for the low fat, 0 fat option, or do I go for the full fat 5% option?
I go for the 5% option.
Okay.
I think the 0% option, a lot of people do use the 0% one because it's a good source of protein and low in fat. But I think we need a bit of fat, I think I always go for the 5% option.
Okay.
And also I get scared of things that have had all the fat removed, because I think they put back in there to. And with the Greek yogurt, I haven't actually looked at the ingredients, but I just always go for the 5%.
And does it have to be Greek yogurt? Like, why? What is it about Greek yogurt? I'm asking all the yogurt questions today.
I mean, you really are.
None of which were on the brief. So.
Well, I think it's just properly made and
and
made from good sources, rather than being. To be honest, I don't really know much about yogurt. If I'm honest, you might need to get someone from a yogurt place.
If there's any yogurt specialists out there who would like to come on and tell us,
yes. But I just think that Greek yogurt, the way that it's been prepared and the way that it's been made, is a better option. And you don't want anything sugary in it. So you don't want any flavoured fruit. It's always better to add your own fruit.
Yeah.
Like if you're buying kefir, I'd always go for the plain one and add your own flavouring and your own fruit, rather than buying any of the sweetened ones, because the sweeteners won't be great.
Yeah. So I guess what's interesting as well is, like a good old fashioned fry up.
Yes.
I guess really, I mean, in the olden days, before cereal came along, I guess people more likely ate in that way, in that they had like bread and cheese or meat and
Yeah.
tomato, like whatever. And I guess that's probably, from what we're saying, is a better way to start your day.
Yeah. I think you do need to be mindful of the way things are cooked and the way things are processed. So there's quite a lot for like processed
Yeah.
foods, I suppose, in a fry up. But yeah, but eggs, essentially eggs and bread and cooked tomatoes, mushrooms, maybe spinach or, avocado would be a really nice way to start the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this fasting business.
Yeah.
So,
People love a
because
fast, don't they?
I mean, it's a thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's so difficult to know whether, should you be fasting? I mean, I know. Well, let's just talk about it. So, from a fertility perspective,
Yeah.
is fasting like? So, when I'm talking about fasting, I'm talking about like it's this thing, isn't it, where you only eat between the hours of like, I don't know what it is, like 11 and 6 or what? It's an 8-hour window, whatever. It like, why is that not a good idea?
I don't not think it's a good idea. I don't think the fasting window doesn't need to be as big. Like, I think it's really good to have a time overnight where you're resting and digesting and you're not constantly grazing late into the evening. So I think, there does need to be a cutoff when you're eating so that your body has time to do its thing overnight. But in the mornings, I personally feel like you need to eat, ideally within the first hour of waking up, because your blood sugar levels drop when you get hungry. Like, your body goes into a panic and your blood sugar levels drop. Then a cortisol sort of spike will occur. And then and we all know when cortisol spikes and everything else stops working quite as effectively until the stressor has passed. So I think, making sure you have breakfast is a really good way, particularly in times of stress, which is when you're going through fertility struggles, you are stressed quite a lot. But it's even more important when you're going through stress that you support your adrenal glands by nourishing them properly. And to do that, you need to have proper breakfast and you need routine around when you're eating.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's really hard, isn't it? Because there's just so much noise about what is right, what isn't right. And I think the fasting thing has really sort of taken off, and I don't know, it does my head in, quite frankly.
Fasting, I think, has its benefits for some things. Like, fasting definitely has its benefits. There's a lot of the fasting research was carried out on men because they don't have our hormonal fluctuation. Post-menopausal, I think, it could really offer some benefits in some people. I think it's like cycling females who are trying to get on top of their hormones for fertility reasons. I just think that we're so sensitive to blood sugar fluctuations that not eating for such long periods of time really isn't healthy.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And so the other big one when we're thinking about breakfast is tea and coffee.
Yes.
So tea, coffee, caffeine, a Monster caffeine drink in the morning. What do we stand there? No, forget about the Monster. I'm being silly.
Being so silly.
Because it's you, Kirsty. I'm showing off. No. So tea, coffee in the morning. What do we think about that?
I think tea and coffee in the morning is absolutely fine, as long as you've had a glass of water, hydrate before you caffeinate, and
Love it.
had something to eat. So no caffeine on an empty stomach, because that will also cause an insulin spike.
Okay. So
cortisol spike.
So tell us, just explain to us again, why not coffee or tea on an empty stomach?
Coffee and tea on an empty stomach will cause an immediate stress response. So immediately your cortisol levels will spike. And as we know, that is not what we want for optimal hormone health. So just by having, even if you're having something small, just try and always eat before you have your morning coffee. And if you absolutely can't have something to eat before you have your morning coffee for whatever reason, putting something like collagen in it is a way to help slow down that spike. But ideally, you want to eat before you do.
There's always a lot of chat around giving up caffeine when you're trying to conceive.
Yes.
So what do you think? Do you think what do you think?
What do I think? I think that 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day is absolutely fine, in my personal opinion. I think it needs, but also coffee's like a normal coffee, not like one of those enormous Starbucks coffees or anything along those lines, like a normal cup of coffee that you'd have at home. I think certainly 1 cup a day is absolutely fine. And actually, quite good health benefits. Coffee does if you get good quality.
So I guess the thing is like having a coffee, but having it when you're hydrated, you've had your breakfast, really enjoy your coffee.
Yeah.
That is a good way, and that's a completely fine way to have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. What about people? I have quite a few people in clinic who say they just don't feel hungry in the morning. They have no appetite. It makes them feel sick. What is that? Is that just like the way that they are, or is that a sign of something else?
I think it also comes down to liver health and the fact that your liver is perhaps a bit sluggish and maybe need a bit of support. I also think it's habit, and that because we're so fed all this nonsense continuously about having to that fasting is good and we have to look a certain way and all this kind of stuff, we sort of have become conditioned to delay eating or skip meals, and like through no fault of our own, but that's the way of society is. Then I think we've sort of just got into a habit of not having breakfast. And actually spending some time trying to move your breakfast. So I'm not saying you have to go in and eat breakfast every day, a big hearty breakfast, but trying really hard to move your breakfast forward in the day, however long that takes, and by going really gradually, I think would be very beneficial. But personally, I feel like waking up and feeling hungry in the morning is a natural response. That's what we should feel. We've been like resting and fasting overnight. We should be getting up, being ready to eat, ready to go out in the day and do what we need to do. It feels like a more natural bodily response.
And sorry, I've just got one more question, and then I will let you go, Kirsty. What about exercise? Like in the morning, if you exercise in the morning, is it better to have your breakfast before or after, or is it just dependent on how you feel?
I think you get better results if you fuel before you exercise. I think you've got that sugar, the sugar and the energy that you need from your breakfast in your muscles and cells ready to use. I think you'll get better results. I also think it's better to eat before you exercise for hormone health as well, because fasting. There's a lot of different research, but I would say for fertility cases and for people trying to have a baby, that having a bit of food before an exercise workout is definitely advised.
Yeah. Well, Kirsty, as always, friend of the show.
A friend of the show.
Thank you.
Sorry, another rambly chat.
No, it wasn't rambly at all. It was good. As always, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And
thanks for having me.
If you would like to hear more from Kirsty, then she is going to be in doing a session on the 22nd of November. No, I've even got it wrong again. I mean, I'm really sorry if you have got the wrong dates, because I have messed this up more times than I care to remember. It's the 22nd of October. So Kirsty will be live doing a webinar all about fertility and nutrition on the 22nd of October. If you can't join live and you want access to the playback, then you just need to register. The link is going to be on the show notes. So Kirsty, thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much. See you.
We hope you have found this episode helpful. If you'd like to leave us a review, we would love you to bits. And if you'd like more support for your fertility, you can come and work with us in clinic. We're based in London and around the UK, or you can work with us online. For more information, see the link at the end of the show.